right. The root of all problems in video games. Let's see.
Hi guys, it's me again, and it's about 7 in the morning, and I figured that I'd record a video before I go to bed.
Oh my god. So I guess Asmund has just been up playing games all night and is doing the cyclical rotation of the sleep schedule where you move it forward or move it backward an hour. Um, and we're on to the point of the cycle where you're it's just backwards now. It's completely backwards. Your AM and PM or 24 hours for the military bros. It's just backwards. All right. What a gamer.
And today, the topic we're going to be talking about is mining canary problems in video games. Now,
Okay. So, mining canary. Okay, so this is like a term that I guess was like used back in the day for like miners, like coal miners or whatever, where they sent canaries, like little small birds. They had them in a cage, and as they're like going down or whatever direction into the mine, if the canary started to like act up and like started flying around in the cage, that meant that the canary, because the canary's like, I don't know, its respiratory system was like more sensitive than like people's. If the canary started like acting up the deeper you went into the mine, it would be like, oh, it's pretty toxic down here, time to dip out. So it's just like an early signifier of something is wrong, something is like, something bad is about to pop up.
now, before I explain what the topic is and how it relates to games, I of course have to explain the metaphor. What is a
Oh,
mining canary? Well, back in the good days, back in the old days,
here we
whenever
go.
people used to have to work in mines, coal mines, etc., they would go down the mine and they would bring with them a canary or some form of bird. And this bird, they would have it in a little cage, and whenever the bird died or the bird or started acting weird or crazy, they would know that because the bird's lungs are smaller, the poisonous gases below them would affect the bird negatively before they were able to be affected as humans, because they obviously, people have larger lungs than a bird does. So the bird dies, oh shit, I don't want to go down there, there's poisonous gases. So
hmm
how does this relate to video games? Well, this is
So essentially, he's just fishing at the fact that sometimes when the community of any game starts chirping up about something, making videos, Reddit posts, or whatever about some critiques about a game, that just came out or something like that, then that is like an early signifier of an issue that could, like pop up to be worse or whatever.
obviously a premonition. This is obviously an ominous sign. So I think that mining canary problems in video games are whenever a specific change or a specific thing in a video game is basically a. If you could distill all of the problems down to any one thing, it would probably be this one thing. And I think that the best way for me to do this is to use a couple of examples. Now, one example now, thankfully, is outdated,
Oh
but
boy.
the second example, unfortunately, is not. First example I'm going to use is the Diablo 4 change from making the leave instance timer 5 seconds instead of 3 seconds. They increased the timer
Oh yeah.
because of some stupid reasoning, and
Well, no, it wasn't stupid reasoning. It was just zero reasoning because the dude just dodged the question at the campfire. So he just said, "There's a gameplay loop there. Let's move on." So that was the reasoning.
I viewed this as a mining canary problem. This is a problem that indicates a key core massive disconnect between the developers and the players. And every once in a while, you'll see a developer make a change that is so.
And this isn't just in Diablo for the example. This can probably be traced. Like this concept can be applied to like any game. Like your favorite game can have mining canary problems. Um, and when he said that it's probably going to be like some sort of underlying philosophy thing with the developers or whatever. Specifically with D4, I mean, I think I got like 100 hours in D4 and then I just quit or whatever because I just was getting bored with it. Um, I always question for any game, has the developer played the game from beginning to end themselves, as would like at least a casual try hard player. You know, if you look at like a chart with like an X and Y axis and you got like a bell curve, the low skill over here, high skill over here, has the developer at least went to the point of like the 50 percentile, you know? Maybe you looked at a guide, maybe like early game you just like messed around with like a build like yourself. You tried to like just freelance it or whatever in D4. And then once you reach that like point where like, oh, okay, I kind of have to figure out the stats and like what they do or whatever. I mean, well, they're the developers, they should know the game themselves, they made it or whatever. So like there's that. I like for any game, I would apply this to like Apex Legends. I was gonna say Apex Predators. Jeez. Yeah, I would apply this to Apex Legends too. Specifically for like, and this is gonna sound whiny or whatever, but like playing Apex Legends as like an average tier like M&K player, it is really just a bad time in Apex. Like there's no point to play Apex Legends on a mouse and keyboard if you're just average. It's just not a good time. You're gonna have a good time if you plug in a controller, 4-3 linear, 4-3 classic, whatever. Pick up a SMG and a wingman and just go to town. It's just and that's like an oversight problem or whatever because I don't know. Maybe the developers don't don't play on M&K because they think it's too hard or whatever. But anyway, I'm going off topic. So the back to the whole mining canary thing.
Out there, so outrageous, so ridiculous that it just kind of encapsulates the entire animosity that they might have with the community or the entire disconnect that they have with the community. And I'd actually be curious, guys, after I put this second example, if you have any examples like this in your own games, maybe examples that I haven't thought of. The second example is going to be in Dragonflight, World of Warcraft.
Oh boy.
And
yeah, I didn't play any Dragonflight, even though it got released and it was like a good launch, well received in general. It's like a good expansion, maybe even above average. I don't know. But like I didn't play Dragonflight just because I'm just so tired of like the World of Warcraft a game loop. It honestly came down for me. Again, it goes back to that bell curve of like average player. Like I just wasn't good enough to push like the higher tier content, the stuff that I wanted to do. Like I was struggling, like me and my buddy, like I was struggling on like was it like Mythic 15 to like 20 range on the keys or whatever. I was just like, there's too much shit happening on the screen. I don't have the right add-ons. I can't click the shit or whatever. Same thing with like heroic and mythic raids. There's too much shit happening. Like they want me to like hit the push to talk thing because everybody's thing in Discord, some dude will have some kids yelling in the background. So therefore, we can't just be like, open mic or whatever. You have to separate. You have to be good enough to like memorize all your keybinds, even if you have like an MMO mouse, and you have to have the right add-ons. You have to be good enough to hit push to talk whenever a thing happens and it's you, whatever. It's just, it all boils down to like the skill issue thing for me in Dragonflight. So I was just like, I'm done with WoW. The game's pay to win. No, thank you. Move on.
Back in the beta, or sorry, not the beta, the pre-expansion patch for the Drakthir, which are going to be the the new race, they had a racial ability where they could fly around and effectively use dragon riding anywhere in the Eastern Kingdoms or anywhere in Kalimdor. And Blizzard thought, in all of their brilliance, they thought that they were going to nerf this and change it. That way, everybody didn't start rolling Drakthir to farm old world dungeons.
Yeah, I did remember watching like all of the content because I was always curious to see like whether or not Dragonflight was going to be a good game. So I watched some of the content and I was like listening to like some of the, I don't know, the developer patch notes or whatever they came out with. They weren't called campfires or whatever. The developer, I don't know, things, vlogs or whatever, for the betas of Dragonflight, and like I saw that change, and I was like, they were afraid that the people were gonna go back and farm old world content too quickly. I was like, I was stunned. I was like, what? Because me as like a regular, like a casual, like WoW player, I was like, I'm not doing that. Still, even if it is quicker, who gives a shit?
Not kidding. That's actually what their logic was. And it is still nerfed to this day. It was an ability called Soar. And also, now with the new patch, it's been announced that, of course, they're actually going to be allowing everybody to use the dragon riding mounts in the old world. So not only is this change stupid fundamentally, but it's also been completely outdated. So it's one of the things where, and again, like as soon as the developer explains what their perspective is and why they think this is a problem, everybody that is watching and that actually plays the video game realizes that they don't.
Yep, that's true. The, um, the moment, and I can outline this even in Apex Legends. Like, I think there was like one video. I think it came out like a year ago or whatever. Um, some like YouTuber was able to grab like an interview with a developer or whatever, and when I listened to the developer speak about the reasonings for why they would implement certain things and not other things, for the most part, was like it was like okay reasoning, but then they would come across like certain topics where it's like that's not how it goes. You do you even play the game like this? You know, for a game that has like crossplay or whatever, where you can have like controller and MK playing together, it's like it sounded like you don't even play your own game. So yeah.
So this is a big problem, and I think that also it's one of the things where like there are sometimes whenever it will seemingly be like a very small change, like oh this is like not really a big deal, like why does this really matter? And it doesn't really matter, but I think in these mining canary type problems, it indicates a larger disconnect. So, for example, if you're charting a course across the ocean, okay,
Hmm.
and you're 1 degree off, by the time that you get to the other side of the ocean,
Oh
you're
yeah.
going to be miles away from where you started,
Yep.
even if you were 1 degree on the other side. And I think this is kind of what happens is that the development of games becomes so disconnected from the player base of games that changes are made and put into a game that I think doesn't really serve anybody and goes to just show the player base that the developers don't really understand what the core gameplay loop of the game really is. And I think a lot of these types of things happen, especially in live service games. And we're talking about, like, obviously, I use Diablo 4 and World of Warcraft as an example, but
So the reason all of this is more pronounced is because developers, like, the big AAA developers, are coming out with less and less new IPs, and they're coming out with more and more singular one off games, and they market them as live service. So it's okay, all the time and effort is being put into that one game, and they're not coming up with like any other games. Whereas, like, back in the day, like, you had all the developer companies like popping off with like all these different types of games, and everyone was like happy. Like, all you got a bunch of different action adventure games, you got a bunch of different uh like FPS games, so on and so forth. That nowadays this is the live version or the live service Halo. This is live service Call of Duty. This is live service World of Warcraft. This is the live service of Apex. And it's like, okay, well, where's all the other variety from like the AAA bros? Well, it's not there anymore. So where do you have to go to have like a good experience? Well, you go to all the indie companies.
Destiny, PUBG, Fortnite, Valorant, League of Legends,
Yeah.
any of these games are all live service games. I think that they become more evident. And the problem really with these live service games and why they have more of these mining canary problems and why it's more common for them to happen is because I do think in live service games there is a different standard of success whenever you're talking about these types of games,
Oh,
because these games are not necessarily measured in terms of did the player complete the game. They're measured in how many hours did the player complete how many hours did it take for the player to complete the game, and also how many times did they spend money on the game, how
yep. And the metrics for a modern day video game to be successful are not the same as opposed to back in the day where the metrics were like how many units did we sell, you know you know the companies didn't really have an idea of what the player was doing because all these live service games weren't always online or whatever, so you can track the player and all their habits. What you know, these people can literally see like where your mouse is. All right, how many times did he hover over the store? How many times did he hover? Like, did he? How much time did he spend in the customization section of our live service game? They can see all that. All right, they can track everything. Whereas back in the day, you buy the disc, you pop it in the console. Didn't matter if you had internet or not, and you're just playing the game. You're playing Splinter Cell Chaos Theory. You know, you're you're taking out bad guys. You're beating the game on the hardest difficulty. You're playing Metal Gear Solid. You're doing all this like cool stealth action stuff. Like they couldn't track all that what you were doing back in the day. Now, if the moment you log onto the game, it's like you're just a plus one for the concurrent player base. What's this plus one doing? Where is he spending all his time? They can see it all.
How long did they put into the game? How many hours? Blizzard calls it, monthly active user player retention. Everything is all about keeping you on that hamster wheel as long as possible.
Yep.
And that's why I think that you see a lot of these changes be put into these games that will artificially increase the amount of time that a game takes in order for it to be finished or for you to achieve a task.
Yep.
And I think that you can contrast this with something like Elden Ring, for example. Elden Ring, there are rare items in Elden Ring. However, a rare item in Elden Ring is not equivalent to a rare item in many, many other games.
Yeah.
Not to mention the fact that you can just mod the game and give yourself any item you want, not to mention items that don't even exist, like with mods, like Convergence, etc. The point is that it is not important for the developers of that game, or Tears of the Kingdom for that matter, it is not important for them to make you waste your time because they've already got your fucking money, number one.
Mm-hmm.
So if you play through the game and you beat the game, this doesn't mean that you are no longer interfacing with their battle pass system. You're no longer interfacing with their store system. And this creates a profit incentive for developers to make things take longer than usual. And it also creates a profit incentive for developers to make things be more frustrating and just in general more difficult to achieve.
So pay for convenience, or when you make a game that's pay for convenience, I mean, I know Diablo 4 isn't like a pay to win or pay for convenience type game or whatever. But on delivery, on like day one when I started playing, it was like, it wasn't horrible. Like I got my money's worth out of the game, but it felt like a slog. Like it was 100 hours, and I put 100 hours in, and I didn't even get to like level 100. I think I stopped at like 84, 85 or something like that. And I was like, oh my god, I'm not even like the max level, and I still have to do more nightmare dungeons and just spam them because that's the gameplay loop of ARPGs. I'm like, okay, I thought I was a fan of ARPGs. This was like a casual version. Maybe I'm not even good enough to be a casual. So I was like, okay, I'm done.
And I guess, these are all other effectively ways of saying take longer to achieve. So I think that really you see a lot of these mining canary problems with live service games, and I think that's really the reason is that there is a success metric that is attached to a lot of live service games, especially that are done by larger companies, that is primarily focused around playtime, and it is primarily focused around a metric that is a quantitative value, which is a lot of times kind of a problem because I think quantitative analysis of games is of course very important, and it should be a foundation for making decisions. But without having the creative intuition to understand the qualitative value of each different thing that's added into the game, then you're not able to really put all the pieces together and understand the full vision of, wow, players really like this system. Well, yeah, no shit, they like the system. It's because you make them do it. And I think that Renown is going to turn into one of those things in Season 2 of Diablo 4. I played through a little bit of Season 1. I've tried to give the game a little bit more of a second, or I don't know, what, a 50th chance? I feel like that's like a toxic ex-girlfriend at this point. And anyway, I've tried to, because I felt like the campfire went okay, and so it's like, all right, well, we'll see what happens. But anyway, one thing that I've noticed is that nobody really likes farming renown. And
Yeah. So essentially, what's happening? There's too much quantitative metrics going on with player retention and not enough qualitative things going on. So it's like, are are the developers of live service games creatively bankrupt? Like they're just all out. Like are I think this happened with movies too. Like I don't remember the last time I went to a movie in the movie theaters. Most of the time I just like watch stuff on a like the laptop or whatever. Um, but like movies have already been going through this. There's not a lot of like great like one-off movies anymore. Yeah, there's like a couple outliers here and there, but like for the most part, um a lot, I mean, this is just a taste thing, a subjective thing or whatever. Um Maybe this is just me thing. It's like I'm not really interested in seeing like the next remake of this movie, the next remake of that movie, the sequel of this movie, the sequel of that movie. I'm just not excited anymore to go to the movies. I'm not excited to see like any of the new shows or maybe like TV shows, or at least like the stuff that gets streamed on all the streaming services. It's like, oh my god, like I could go on and on like hours for this. Like there's been so many shows that have just been such like a disappointment, and that's all I can say about them. It's like there are so many good shows that I was looking forward to. Like a lot of Star Wars stuff. Halo disappointment. The Witcher, the Lord of the Rings show or whatever, the Wheel of Time thing. Like I'm just severely disappointed in like all of this stuff, man. It just sucks.
And I don't think that I'll really be playing season two if I have to farm renown again. And I think that also a lot of players are very willing to compromise with the developer, and I think this is a bad thing. And the reason why I think that it's a bad thing is that why can't we just have fun all the time? And before you go and say, okay, well, you could just start at level 100 and do all this other stuff, nobody really has fun doing renown, right? And so, like, why not just cut that out and let people just play the game without renown? Like, PoE doesn't have renown. PoE has other things that are semi annoying, but not anywhere near as annoying as renown. And Diablo 3, I'm pretty sure didn't have renown either. So it's not like you need renown for any RPG to work or to function. But for some reason, Blizzard is dead set on not allowing you to remove it. And I think that if it continues in season two, I will probably classify it as one of those mining canary problems, that it is an
Yeah,
indication of the entirety of the disconnect between Blizzard and the player base. That they value metrics such as time played, that you obviously farm a lot of whenever you convince a player that they have to farm renown, because it's effectively like, I mean, if you want to be good at the game, you want to have 20 extra Paragon points, obviously.
yep,
So it's like 50 extra percent damage in some cases, especially if you can hit an extra yellow node. The point is that, of course, obviously, a lot of people are going to want to do that, and then you pump up those playtime numbers by artificially increasing the amount of time that they would interface with the game, by creating pointless hurdles for them to jump over. And I think that also, players are more than willing to go through, I think, some level of annoyance. And I
hmm
think that in general, as a community, I don't think that we should really do that as much. And it's not about like, hey fellas, you're getting older, right? This isn't a fucking erectile dysfunction ad. But the truth is that a lot of people don't want to invest 20 extra. They don't want to have a minus 20 on the hours of their life just because a video game has a pointless hoop for you to jump through in order
yeah,
to inflate metrics for a shareholder report. And I think the truth is that if enough players say no, then the company will say yes, and they'll do what the players want. And that's just the beauty of a free market. And I really hope more people understand that, and I hope more people stop compromising with allowing their time to be wasted with useless mechanics and useless design. And I think understanding what a mining canary problem is with a video game, and being able to identify what it is, and I think especially the best types of problems like this are the ones that are nerfs to things that nobody cares about, or changes to things that just simply like a crafting time of something is increased by like a tremendous amount and it's a single player game or something like
Ooh.
that. Those types of things are very good indicators of where the developer's mind is at, and oftentimes it's not in the same place as the player. It's been an idea that I've thought about a lot recently, and I've been seeing it a lot more in games, and I've always kind of had like an idea of this, but I never really came up with a term for it. So I figured I'd make this video and talk about it with you guys, see kind of how other people have to think about it, what you guys think, examples in games that you've played, and am I the only one who's crazy here, or
Nah.
has this been a thing for quite a while? And I think it's actually quite insightful whenever you kind of identify it as an idea and then look at things through that lens. So anyway, I wanted to share that with you guys and talk about it, have a little conversation, and yeah. Anyway, be curious to hear other people's examples and see if it's as much of a common thing in other games as it is seemingly in Blizzard games. So that's about it. Thanks for watching. Peace.
Okay. Yeah. So I thought this was like really good. Um, he brings up a lot of great points with the whole mining canary thing. At least with like live service games and them extending playtime artificially just to inflate player retention numbers. He mentioned the whole quantitative versus qualitative thing or whatever. With like single player live service things. Like how like most live like when I say the word live service, I think of like multiplayer games. And yes, Diablo 4 is like a multiplayer game, but you can essentially just play the game like solo. Um, like live service, like when I think live service, I more think of like about like FPSs in like shooter type games, because people just enjoy like a little bit more competitive, like I don't know, a competitive nature out of like shooter games. I mean, Borderlands, like 1, 2, and 3, and like all the spin-offs, none of those games were live service or whatever. Granted, there are a shitload of like microtransactions and like expansions for those games. Um, so that's a little bit different. But I mean, he does bring up a lot of good points. So it's just something to look out for. Another thing to examine whenever you're looking at like another AAA developer coming out with a live service game. And you know I mean, because the main thing is like you don't want your time to be wasted, you don't want your time to be disrespected. You want to enjoy the time you are playing, enjoying like a hobby. So yeah, who knows, maybe it'll get better for D4 and I don't know, different live service games, who knows. But until then, uh yeah, we'll see. So overall, great video. And it's the goat Asmon. All right, so go pop on over there, say what's up, and till next time, take it easy, guys. Later.